Hi there, it's David Young, the Resourceful Coach, and what we're going to talk a little bit about today is hitting a successful chip and run shot. It's a shot I encourage a lot of my golfers to do, especially when there's nothing in the way. Keep it very simple. But what we're going to look at today is how we keep our technique consistent throughout our shots. And we're going to relate this to a previous video I did, which was hitting a successful lob wedge shot, and keep as many similarities as we can and understand how to use the golf club to actually get the result that we want. So what is a chip and run shot? A chip and run shot is all about really understanding the flight of the ball. When would I use that shot? Well, I would use it in this situation. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paces in sort of indifferent grass. I get golfers who may putt that in better conditions, and I have no issue with that. I think that's an option. But we've got 5 paces of approximate trouble, and then we've probably got about 45 feet of green. Okay, so here's the important thing. What I always say to golfers is if you stood over the shot and you had to play it, well, let's say if you had to throw a ball, what would you do? Okay, if I picked up a ball here, because there's nothing in the way, I'd probably think, well, I can roll this low. I'd think I can roll it there, land it there, and run the ball up towards the flag. So what I would do is go with your natural instinct. Think, if I threw it, what would I do? In this case, there's no reason to throw it high, no need to stick it up there. If I take something like an 8-iron, I can now keep that trajectory low like the throw, and I can get the idea of what I'm looking to do. So we always talk a little bit about the sort of the flight of the ball, but when it comes to short game, there's so much importance on the roll of the ball. So there's 2 parts to this shot. How far do you want it to fly? How do you expect it to roll? And that's really important. So when we're playing this shot here, another one of my videos we talk about, I call the 2-step rule. Now the 2-step rule is simply this: land the ball at least 2 steps onto the green. Okay, and the reason for that is if you slightly underhit it, you're going to land on the best surface on the course. You're still going to land on the green and you'll get a decent reaction. If we land it short into this sort of fluffy grass, we don't really know what we're going to get. So the number one rule, if you can do it, we've got plenty of green here to work with, we can do it, is to get that ball, get it right up onto the green. And that's a minimum of 2 paces. We can land it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Doesn't matter. Play it onto that green so you know then the flight is going to land you on the best surface on the course, and then you're going to get the roll on the shot. So that's sort of the image of the shot. I'll just play a shot. I've got an 8-iron here, and that's a club I would probably encourage most of my golfers to use. Okay, we're going to go through the technique in a minute, but you'll just watch the flight here. It's not going to go particularly high. Pop the ball forward, and then it runs up the green, and we've got that about flagstick length away from the hole. So that's the sort of the look of the shot. That's the idea. We've chosen the idea from how we think we would throw it. Now we've got the result of the shot by playing it with a club that's going to give us that idea as we go through. But we're going to show you them more than one option to play this shot. So now we're going to look at a little bit more from a face-on angle, look at the technique to get the result that we're looking for. So if we look at the video, what we call from a face-on angle, we're going to talk a little bit about ball position. We're going to talk a little bit about width of stance. But just as important with our lob shot is to make sure the club goes through the ball and you keep the momentum of the club going through the shot. And I think that's really, really important when you play this shot. So if we think back, when I was throwing that ball earlier, I didn't stand here with a very powerful set. I just sort of had quite a narrow stance, underarm throw. Wasn't really a lot of power in it. And I want you to take that idea into this shot. So first thing you're looking at, come back to that club in a minute, explain how we're going to use that, is with your stance. Narrow the stance up. Think about the power. The last thing you want to see, you pick up an 8-iron, don't think, oh, I've got to hit an 8-iron like this. Bring it in. How far can you hit an 8-iron? Let's say most golfers, let's say 120 yards. We're now looking to hit the ball 25 yards. So we're looking really at just under a quarter, or around about a quarter of the power that we need from a full shot. Doesn't mean narrow your stance by a quarter, but definitely half it. Bring it in from there, bring it in a little bit narrow on that side. Okay, the key thing now I want to make sure that when I play the shot is I want to make that ball go low. I've chosen a club to do it, an 8-iron. The second thing I'm going to do is just in my mind is think I need, if anything, the shaft of the golf club just to slightly lean forwards, just fractionally forwards that way. And what that does, it keeps the loft off the club. It keeps the loft as I've chosen, or even slightly reduces it slightly, which is what I want. I want a low ball flight. Don't feel like you're leaning back and think, I've got to get this ball up in the air. If you want to hit a higher shot, use a pitching wedge. okay? And that's important for you to understand as you play the shot. So all I'm looking for in my stance is to feel, if you look at the microphone that I'm wearing, I want to get that microphone really at the front of the ball. And I call this clap your way to success when you chip. And simply, if you clap your hands in the middle of your body, that's what you'd naturally do. You wouldn't do this or this. You would naturally clap your hands in the middle of the body. Get your hands in that position at the front of the golf ball. That gets the shaft of the club now exactly where you want it to be. And now that gets the body right. And it may feel like to you, what that does now, it feels like you've got the ball fractionally, and we're talking fractionally back in your stance. We're not talking way off your back foot here, but if that works for you, I'm not going to stop you doing it. We're just favouring that back foot. But it's more the sternum, it's more the handle being at the front of the ball. That's the key thing. Now, mentally, then what I'm thinking about, and this is what we did with the lob wedge shot, I don't want height. So I'm just going to put this club here, okay, on the line that I'm going. And I'm just going to have the mental picture that when I play this shot, is that when my club goes through, I'm going to hit the ball, and then mentally after that ball, I'm going to hit that club. Okay, that's just the mental picture. You're not going to do this when you play a shot because you'll damage your clubs. But it's just that mental picture that you're keeping that club going through. You're not missing it. You're not trying to help the ball up into the air. It's the biggest failing when I see people around the green. Oh, I've got to get it up in the air. But the great thing with this shot, we're not attempting to get it up in the air. We're getting that ball moving forwards. So with the narrower stance and now the thought process of hitting that club there, what that's going to do is drive the ball forwards. And that's the whole idea of the shot. We want to make the ball go forwards. We don't want to really make it go up. The loft of the club is going to give us the loft that we need, the angle that we need. Okay? So just to recap those positions, I'm thinking of the handle at the front of the ball. So what I've done, I've clapped my hands and I've put my hands at the front of the ball. I've narrowed the stance to give me control. And that position with my hands now gets the hands forward. It keeps the loft consistent. Then all I'm thinking when I play the shot is I'm going to feel like I'm going to hit that club where it was ahead of me. If I do that, makes the ball go forwards, and now the ball's running. But I've used whatever loft has elevated it over the trouble to get the ball running out towards our target. Okay? Now, we're going to go back and look at it again from a down the line angle. We're going to just focus on one other thing, which I know a lot of you guys do, which I encourage, is to get the right distance from the ball. Because you're standing with a narrower stance, it will make you feel a bit more upright, but how we can make it easier to get a consistency with this result of the shot. So we're back looking at it from what we call a down the line angle. And if we think about what we've done with our stance, we've narrowed it up. And if you narrow it up, what do you become? You become, if anything, a little bit taller than if your stance was sort of wide, you'd get lower. So by getting a little bit taller, it naturally makes your swing a little bit more upright. And what I see you guys do, which again I would encourage, is the feeling of two things when you set up. If you're getting a little bit taller with that narrow stance, get a little bit closer to the ball. And what you may find is you're putting the club on the ground, rather than it sitting in its traditional 8-iron position, you might find the sole is flat, or even you might find a little bit the toe is on the ground and the heel is slightly up. And what that's doing, you can see it's moving the shaft from a shallow position to a more upright position. So it's a lot simpler to swing along the line you want to go. It's a bit more like a putt. So that's another good thing I think we can do. So that's really, really important as we set up. The next thing, which we haven't actually talked about, which again, most people say, why have you missed that out, is find yourself, if you feel comfortable, gripping a little bit down the club. But this is more important to the lie of the land. So what I want you to do is always find your posture first, find that position. And then once that's in position, is then think from there, now let your arms hang. And in this situation, you can see with my 8-iron, I'm gripping probably a good 1.5 inches down the club. And that feels right to me. But if the ball was more below my feet, I might only be gripping 1 inch down the club. And if the ball was slightly above my feet, I might be gripping 2 or 3 inches down the club. And then this becomes important with things like your clothing and how you're playing, because I see a lot of guys use different clubs, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And that is the importance then of making sure that, especially in the winter, you're playing, you don't want the club getting caught up in your clothes. So find that club that you think, yeah, I'm nicely in position, as I said, a little bit more upright. And from there, I've got that ball just slightly back of my stance. I'm thinking of that clapping position. And then from there, keep the club going through. Make the ball go forwards. Get the ball rolling up the green. And let's just talk a little bit about what would be a good shot. Well, Again, we always say you're always looking to play the best possible shot. But what would be good? Well, if you're a scratch golfer, we'd like to put this probably around about 5 feet or better. Okay, 5 feet would be your average. Our single figure golfer, we're looking now probably near 8 feet. And our player shooting around 90, we're looking around about 15 feet. So I think a good sort of benchmark for level of expectation, if you can get that ball, I'd say at any level, it's not a powerful shot. It's a shot we can all become good at because it's not a power issue. Is think to yourself, well, if I want to play low single figures, I want to be inside a flag stick length. And if I'm happy to shoot around 90, that's what I'm working for. 2 flag stick lengths, that's good. That will work for you, okay? So find what works for you, but mentally think, yeah, I want to play the best shot. I've played that nicely to about 2.5 feet. I'm never going to be disappointed with that. The importance then from there is to think, keep thinking that, but if you do end up a little bit outside it, that's okay. Now, we're going to talk of different choice of club. Let's just pull out some different clubs. What do we got over here? Okay, and for me, I see lots of different shots, and I've pulled out 3 clubs. I've got my 6-iron, my 8-iron, my wedge. And I play a little bit of a golf with one of the members here, and he's a steady player, and his experience, he uses a 6-iron every time around the greens, and that's what works for him. Okay, so that's really important. Again, he gets that very tall position as he sets up. From there, he can just swing down the line. He's practiced that for years. It works for him. Personally, I wouldn't play that. I like a little bit more loft, and I'm worried that's going to get caught in my clothes. So that for me wasn't work for me, but he's brilliant at it. Okay, so if that works, do it. Okay. Then you've got more what I would say would be the standard club, an 8-iron, something like that. But remember, golf clubs have become a little bit stronger over the last few years. Clubs' lofts have reduced. So an 8-iron from 20 years ago to now, an 8-iron now is around about probably 6-7 degrees less loft. So if you find that you were good with an 8-iron 20 years ago, might be able to get rid of that, and you might actually find you're doing really well just with a standard pitching wedge. Okay? But here's the thing, experiment, play around with it. That's really important. Watch the flight of the ball. Watch how it works for you. So I've gone to the wedge, and all I'm going to do here to make sure I keep the loft off, I'm just going to put it a little bit further back in my stance. And from there, and just watch the ball flight through, runs through. That just had a little bit more loft. That one will take all day long. That's ended up about a foot from the hole. So it's important to find what works for you. And I think that's really, really important. Don't think there's only one way. As we've shown you there, the 6-iron, the 8-iron, the wedge, whatever works. Watch the ball flight, watch the result, see what you get. From there, you can learn how to get better shots. But with a wedge, you can see I'm comfortably over that trouble. Probably 4 or 5 paces onto the green. It's running down nicely. And that one probably, yeah, just inside a flag stick length. So I'm really happy with those 3 shots. So I hope that's helped you today. We've given you the idea of the technique of how to play that shot. So go narrower stance, stand a little bit closer. If you feel you want to grip down the club, do so. And then the sensation from there is just play that ball just fractionally back in your stance. We're talking fractions, we're not talking feet back. We're talking an inch or so back in your stance. Think of the club going through the ball. Think of that club after it, that you're going to hit that club afterwards. Go and watch the lob wedge shot. We do exactly the same thing, but because the lob wedge has more loft, I had the elevation to get over the bunker that we've got over here just to the side of me. So go and watch those 2 shots, but you'll see, this is the key thing, the consistency of technique. All I've done probably slightly differently is narrow that stance. I stand a little bit closer with the running shot than say the lob wedge shot. But actually the thought of how the club is going through the ball remains exactly the same. I hope you enjoyed today's tips working on that chip and run shot. If you have, please subscribe to my channel, press that little bell for notifications, and please share it with your friends.